Hey, I'm Nick.
And I'm Allie.
And this is But Have You Tried from the David A. Howe Public Library. The show in which Allie and I trade off random things with each other to see if the other one finds a new favorite. I'm excited about today's topic because it is a favorite of mine. And we'll see what you got. Did you have a good experience exploring your topic today, Allie?
Overall, I'd say a good experience, yeah.
Okay, all right.
I procrastinated a little bit, so it was like the last few days I'm just like watching Elvis movies back to back, you know what I mean?
That sounds like a dream. Okay, so an Elvis cram session. All right.
An Elvis cram session
right,
is
old school.
how we did this.
Yeah, okay. Were you a procrastinator in college?
Not for the most part.
Oh, I was. Elvis may be the king of rock and roll, but I was the king of procrastination, so.
I guess I'm just turning over a new leaf.
Yeah.
I mean, I procrastinated a little bit, but not usually too much. I feel like the kinds of thing I procrastinate are always like real life things that I actually need to do, like get your oil changed, which I really need to do, and you know, like vacuum your house, which usually I pawn off on Caleb, to be honest.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, that makes sense. We want to give a special thanks to Corey Lunn, who wrote our great theme song. I love that theme song.
It's fantastic.
Bow, 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 bow. And Corey has a single on Spotify, which is great.
It is great. It's like I'll be like, you know, doing a writing session in the evening, and I'm like, all right, let's just put Corey's single on on repeat.
That's right. It's really good. Go find it on Spotify. We'll share it out from the social medias. You can follow us on Twitter at DA Howe Library and on Facebook at David A. Howe Public Library. We'll be posting updates from the show there. We'll also be posting some things you can follow for new topics and things like that. And maybe we'll post Corey's song as well.
That's true. It's a live possibility.
It is. So thank you to Corey. Also, thank you to 92.7 WRAQ out of Angelica for airing the show Wednesdays at 9. So if you're tuning in on the radio, welcome. Hope you're having a pleasant Wednesday. What's your Wednesday night like, Allie? Is it a big night for you?
It's the night that I now work the late shift here at the library.
That's right.
So it's usually me sitting at the desk being like, your brain has shut off, but you're still going to be productive,
you're still
right?
At work. That's right.
So
explain to the nice people why you had to switch your evening night.
Okay, so here's why I had to switch my evening night.
Okay.
Back in the day, I'm going to say this was 2018.
Wow.
Some of my friends from college back then said to me, you should play Dungeons and Dragons. And I said, I don't have any time. And they said, it's fine. We'll be here over the summer. We can do a little short thing over the summer when you have more time. We did that and we didn't finish it. We came back in the fall and we said, well, we have to finish it.
You have to.
So now we've been doing that for years.
Okay.
And for a few months now, we haven't been able to meet because no one's schedules align.
Yeah.
And finally, my dungeon master said to me, look, Allie.
Finally, my dungeon master said to me. That's a phrase I've never said. And it rolled right off your tongue. Wow. Okay.
Yep. It's just, you know, you get used to this kind of thing after a while.
Yeah.
He said to me, Allie, the only prayer we have of being able to play for the foreseeable future is if you rearrange your entire work schedule.
Yeah.
And I said, that's what I will do.
That's what you'll do. And luckily, you have a benevolent employer here at the David A. Howe Public Library.
Luckily, I have a benevolent employer.
Yes. You know, I've played Dungeons and Dragons a handful of times in my life, so I'm not an expert like you. I don't have a standard dungeon master as you do. I will tell you that I am fully here for this Chris Pine Dungeons and Dragons movie.
That's fair.
I saw a trailer, and it looks great.
It does look pretty fun.
Because I know, like, Dungeons and Dragons and fans of Dungeons and Dragons have had a pretty negative relationship to Dungeons and Dragons movies and media of the past. I remember that Justin Whalen movie that came out when I was in high school. Like, everyone hated that. So what's the word on the street? Is this appealing to fans or just non-fans?
At least the people I've talked to have been cautiously optimistic, I would say.
All right.
Yeah. I don't know if it was a show or movie or what that blessed us with the, like, quote-unquote official Dungeon Master costume, which is, like, this horrible, like, orange thing, like, robe thing with, like, this weird wig and, like, white stripes.
Yeah.
I'm doing a bad job describing it, but it's really cursed, but it's also, like, kind of so horrible that it's beautiful, so you could say it's blurst.
Yeah. I'm old enough to remember a time where saying Dungeons and Dragons was the same as saying I'm going to go and worship the devil actively.
I feel like if I say Dungeons and Dragons to a person who's older than, like, 30.
Yeah, like
there's
me.
There's like a 50-50 chance that they'll give me this like side eye of like, what are you What are you doing on a Tuesday night?
Yep. Yeah, in circles in the I want to say the 80s, early 90s, it was just synonymous with like being in a devil cult.
Well, there's no devil worshipping here, I promise.
Come a long way.
It's just improv where we roll a lot of dice.
Okay. That sounds pretty innocuous. So, all right. Speaking of my age, Allie, I recently had to put myself to the test. I didn't like the results.
Oh, dear.
I was traveling, and I had a connection that I had to make in Newark. And the Newark airport is like famously slow and difficult. But I had 2 hours. Like I had 2+ hours to get there.
Seems
and
like a good amount of time.
Totally fine.
As long as your flight isn't delayed.
Yeah, totally. As long as your flight isn't delayed. So there I am, I've got my bag. I'm there. I'm at the airport. I'm getting ready to go. And it's like, oh, your flight's been delayed. And I was like, what's a half hour?
Now, do you have like a checked bag and a carry-on?
No, just
a carry-on.
I traveled with a thing that you can keep with you.
Okay, the personal item.
Easy, yeah, personal item. Yeah, so it was easy peasy. And so I was like, all right, a half hour, whatever. And then it was like another half hour and another half hour and another half hour. So it was like a 2-hour flight. And by the time we left, it was like maybe I had 90 minutes before the next plane took off. So miraculously, we made it to the airport in time. But I was like still on the plane, like taxiing in Newark when the last flight out of Buffalo was boarding. And there was 65 gates between my plane where I was getting off and where the flight to Buffalo was taking off. So I'm talking to the flight attendant and I'm like, I have to get on this plane. And so she's messaging the other like flight deck being like, hey,
don't leave.
I got a guy coming. And she made an announcement to everybody and she was like, listen, we have a few people, because it's not just me, but a few people making really tight connections. So everybody has to stay seated until they get off the plane, which was cool. We're going into taxi, and somebody gets up and goes to the bathroom. And she was so mad because she was like, I told everybody to stay in their seat, and somebody went to the bathroom, and we can't leave until they get out of the bathroom. So there's a lot of bathroom shaming for this person on my flight.
Got it.
So we finally get to the gate, and I'm like fully late now. Like it will be next to impossible. But people stay in their seats. I get off the plane, and then I just like run like I haven't ran since that Justin Whalen Dungeons and Dragons movie came out in the 90s. And by the time I got to my gate, I was so embarrassingly like out of breath and dehydrated and just like dying. But I made it on the plane.
Well, good for you.
But it was a wake-up call that I...
That sounds traumatic.
I maybe need to get up and move a little bit more because it was difficult.
Oh my goodness.
You know what I was listening to on that plane?
Was it Elvis?
It was a little bit of Elvis music, yeah, to get back in the zone here. So let's do it, Allie. Let's do it. I asked you in our episode 0 if you tried Elvis Presley, and the answer to that was a resounding...
Ain't nothing but a hound dog.
That's right. You had a children's CD with Hound Dog
Ain't
on
nothing
it.
But a Hound Dog. I feel like I've heard a handful of his other songs.
All right.
But Hound Dog is what I always associate.
Yes.
As the most Elvis thing I know.
As I said in our episode 0, I'm sure I traced the roots of this back to my grandma who loved Elvis, listened to a lot of Elvis records and everything like that. But I don't know. Elvis is just one of those things that is like... most like high school friends or whoever would be like, name some things that Nick likes, and it would probably be like Back to the Future, Coca-Cola, and Elvis and Superman. Like those are probably the things that everybody would say like from that time, and it's remained true.
I was gonna say I feel like that's still
it's pretty solid.
It's pretty solid.
Yeah, I haven't changed that much. So I listened to a ton of Elvis music as a kid. I got into the movies because there's a lot of them. There's like 30 plus Elvis movies.
It's so much.
Yeah.
I didn't watch that many movies.
I would find those on VHS, and I remember Walmart when they were kind of like, we're not doing VHS anymore. For whatever reason, had a big back catalog of Elvis movies. So there was like, I probably got like 20 Elvis movies for like 99 cents at Walmart and watched a million of them. So I watched the movies, I listened to the music, I read the book. I've seen several like Elvis impersonator shows. One of those had Charlie Hodge, who was one of Elvis's like regular like backup guys, actually at this show.
Oh, that's cool.
He wrote a book called Me and Elvis. So I met him afterwards and he signed it. And it was a cool book to read. And so I go deep with Elvis, and still to this day, like I'm a big Elvis fan. And my wife didn't care about Elvis, and she's kind of come around. Like,
okay.
She's not going to listen to Elvis if I'm not in the room.
But if
like,
you are in the room,
yeah, she's
okay.
got an appreciation for Elvis, and we really enjoyed the Baz Luhrmann movie and everything. So I do think I successfully like brought her over to the blue suede side of the street.
Okay.
And so yeah, and she's always loved the song "Walking in Memphis." Which is, very, very Elvis heavy. So that was kind of her connection, like your random Irish song that
right,
connects you to Elvis. So yeah, I don't know. I can't put my finger on what it is. I just I like what he's bringing to the table, and I still enjoy it to this day. So
alrighty,
take me through it. Tell me some things you learned about Elvis. Tell me some of your takeaways.
Okay, so I'm gonna hit you with some Elvis facts.
Book report me.
That I found from an extremely reputable online source.
Does it start with a W and end with an Wikipedia?
Maybe.
Okay. All right.
All right. Elvis Presley.
Yes.
His dates 1935 to 1977.
Yeah.
None of which I was alive for.
Mm-mm.
Okay. He was born in Mississippi and shortly thereafter moved to Memphis, Tennessee. Some highlights that I pulled from the Definitely Not Wikipedia that I read. Mm-hmm. It sounds like he was a little bit of a loner in school at first, and there's like an anecdote of him like bringing his guitar to school and just like playing it by himself.
Oh,
which I like. That's a little sad, but also I'm like, I love that for you. Just like jamming with your guitar, doing your thing.
Go for it.
So apparently, though, he became more popular as he grew more attractive in high school.
Oh yes, okay.
And
that happens. It happens to the best of us.
Yeah, I know, but yeah, he also competed in a talent show that like I guess. He didn't read any music, so he like failed his music class.
Okay. So
when he came out to play for the talent show, everyone was like, "Oh, great!"
Here we go.
But then it was Elvis, and he did great, and so everyone was like,
"He's known for that.
This is great."
Mm-hmm.
He began his music career playing rhythm guitar in 1954.
Okay.
Something I didn't know that I found kind of interesting is that like at the beginning, people were like, "We want to bring the sound of like black music to white people."
Yeah.
And we need a white guy to do that.
Apparently.
So we're gonna choose Elvis, and I was like, "Oh." I hadn't thought of that, but it does explain some things. I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense now that I read it.
Yeah, and I think that's like the perspective on that has changed a lot. Like over the years, it sort of like seemed good at the time and then kind of went through a place where it was like, so is he just like appropriating this sound and like, now the white man shall bring this music? I don't know. I don't know.
And it was interesting because it was like, apparently at first it was kind of like, he's going to corrupt, like white youth by singing these songs. Yeah. And now it's like kind of rotated to the other perspective where it's like, a white guy singing. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
So I guess that's a little bit encouraging to me that we've gone from like controversial for one reason to like controversial for the total opposite reason.
And it's hard to say, like his sound still, like even with that, it's a unique sound because it is bringing elements of gospel and like other kind of 50s aesthetics into it and kind of making it its own new thing. So I think it's pulling from a lot of resources, and that's part of the reason why there's a uniqueness. I think even still when you hear Elvis music, it doesn't sound like other 50s hits, and it doesn't really sound like other 60s hits. It's like Elvis music is kind of its own genre in a way, which is
and
unique,
especially because I feel like he has kind of a distinct voice.
Yeah.
Like sometimes when he's singing, it'll be like, oh, I could think this was a different, 50s singer or whatever. Yeah. And other times I'm like, there's no way this could be anyone other than Elvis singing right now. And I don't know how to describe it. It's like almost the like warbling quality that he has.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't feel like other people do that. I don't know.
Well, I think that he tends to kind of use his voice like you'd use a musical instrument. Like he brings out different registers. Sometimes it is kind of a very like, I'm going to sing a baritone ballad. And other times it has like a more of a country flavor to it. Sometimes there's like a real deep kind of a resounding sound. And he's got a great high register too. So it's sort of like whatever the song requires, his voice is a little different. So like, listening to a bunch of things like back to back to back, like The Wonder of You versus like, Wear My Ring Around Your Neck or something like that, or In the Ghetto, like those don't really sound like the same voice.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think that that's part of what made it such a big crossover hit.
Well, and I feel like especially like listening to some like compilation CDs, that was like particularly apparent when you just like go from one to being like soft ballad to being like more of like a I don't know how to describe it, but like
I think there's pretty distinctive like the late 50s sound where you're still kind of chasing a bit of a like it's kind of a Sinatra-esque quality, but mixing that with sort of like a Bill Haley and his Comets, like Rock Around the Clock, kind of like doo-woppy sort of vibe.
Right.
And then just like the Elvis-y-ness that he has. I mean, that's sort of like late 50s where we're pushing like the rock side a little bit heavier. In the 60s, I think particularly with the movies and everything, pushes it into a more like pop aesthetic. You know, so much of his music in the 60s was dominated by like what was in the movies, which was not the top of the quality, you know, as far as like writing and everything. And then when you push into the 70s, you have more of a, you know, even though he was relatively young, you have more of an elder statesman kind of quality to his voice.
Right.
And it's not always the greatest in that era. Like, it gets away from him a little bit. Some of the control, I think, is not quite there. And I think the requirements of that extended jam, sort of big sound 70s casino vibes do something totally different. So it would be weird to just like, I have a bunch of Elvis music, you know, on my phone, and I just kind of put it on shuffle, and it was like not a good listening experience because it's pulling from
totally
completely different genres. So you really have to have more of like, that's why I suggested the compilations too that I did, which was the number one hits and second to none, because those do a pretty good job of pulling a unified sound together. Whereas just going to Spotify and saying like shuffle all Elvis, it's going to be, you're going to have whiplash, you know?
I could definitely see that.
Yeah.
Okay, a few more facts.
Yes, please.
He signed with RCA Victor Records.
Okay.
And his first single with them was Heartbreak Hotel in 1956. Mm-hmm. He made his film debut the same year in Love Me Tender.
Yes. He started with Sun Records, which was a smaller, just a smaller little thing, and like That's All Right Mama and stuff like that was like some of the things that really got it going. RCA, obviously the big break. And Love Me Tender is interesting because it's the only one where he is not the lead character. Like, he's a supporting actor.
I guess that makes sense for your first movie to not necessarily be immediately the lead. But it is kind of funny to think about.
It is. And it's like Love Me Tender was kind of setting him up to be like, and now he's also going to act.
Right.
You know, whereas like later Elvis movies are like, this is an Elvis movie. You know, Love Me Tender is a real movie that features Elvis, and
whereas other movies are like, this is Elvis. You
came to see Elvis. Here's what we got.
We're giving you Elvis.
Build some things around it. So I actually think like so much of the movies. I say this as somebody who loves Elvis. So much of the movies are just crap. They're just painful to watch. He's not having a good time. You know, like they don't all age well. Some of them are great, and in some of them, I think Change of Habit is a good example. He has really nice moments, and I always feel like if given the opportunity, like he turned down West Side Story, for example, like playing Tony in West Side Story, or opposite Barbra Streisand in A Star Is Born. Like, he had to turn down some of these things that like might actually have showcased what he could do as an actor, because I really think that he did have it, but he was stuck playing Elvis. Right. So I don't know. But anyway, I cut you off from your book report.
Fine.
Yes. Love Me Tender.
More details. He married Priscilla Beaulieu is how we're going to go with pronouncing her maiden name.
I don't think that's
in 1967. I tried.
Yeah, and that's a scandal too because she was young.
I know. So it was like I was reading his Wikipedia page and I was like, okay, Elvis, lots of information, so many songs and movies. And I go over to her Wikipedia page and it's like, oh, this is really uncomfortable.
It is uncomfortable. It is. Yeah, no way around that. And they kind of, in the movie, they don't really talk about it. Like that Baz Luhrmann movie. It's just kind of like, yeah.
It feels like something you would want to address, but maybe that's just me.
Yeah.
But that definitely gave a different perspective on Elvis.
Yes.
Because I was thinking about it and I was like, I feel like for some reason when I was a kid, I had like really bad vibes about Elvis.
Really?
And I don't fully know why. I just like I was like, there's just bad energy here. Which is like a really, I don't know. And then I was reading this Wikipedia page where it's like, he met his wife when she was 14 and like, anyway, then he like had affairs while they were married. And I was like, maybe this is why I had bad vibes. I don't know.
Yeah. They had one child, Lisa Marie Presley, who actually just recently passed away at our time of recording.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, sort of
unexpectedly. I was looking and it looks like his daughter and then granddaughter have both done some like music stuff, which is kind of cool.
His granddaughter Riley Keough is in that Daisy Jones and the Six.
I saw that, and I was like, Daisy Jones and the Six. Yeah, Nick is always mentioning that.
I love that book. Yep. Yeah.
He died suddenly in Graceland in 1977.
I've never been to Graceland. I don't know how this is possible, but I have never been to Graceland.
That does surprise me.
I know. I gotta go.
Add it to your bucket list.
Yep. Field trip. But have you tried field trip?
Maybe. apparently he had poor health due to prescription drug use and poor eating habits.
Yep.
Which
a
is
lot of fried
time.
peanut butter and banana sandwiches, which
really?
are delicious, frankly. But
if that's the culprit, I can understand why.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, okay. I think that's all I have for my book report.
So what did I miss? He sold 500 million records. He's the best-selling solo artist of all time, according to the Guinness Book of World Records. He won 3 Grammys. The most gold and platinum albums of anybody, most charted albums on the Billboard 200, most number 1 solo albums on the UK charts, most number 1 singles on the UK charts. He was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom posthumously. He's just a whole thing. I pulled up a list of all of the Hall of Fames he's been inducted into, and it's ridiculous.
Oh my gosh.
They are as follows: the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the Country Music Hall of Fame, the Rockabilly Hall of Fame, the Gospel Hall of Fame, the Honky Tonk Hall of Fame, the Memphis Music Hall of Fame, Mississippi Musicians Hall of Fame, Mississippi Walk of Fame, Shreveport's Walk of Stars, Mississippi's Hall of Fame, Mississippi Arts and Entertainment Experience Hall of Fame, Rhythm and Blues Music Hall of Fame, UK Music Hall of Fame, Playboy Jazz and Pop Hall of Fame, Hit Parade Hall of Fame, Christian Music Hall of Fame, 411 Music Hall of Fame, Memorable Music Hall of Fame, Kenpo Karate Hall of Fame, Martial Arts Hall of Fame, because he got big into martial arts later on, Hollywood Walk of Fame, Las Vegas Walk of Stars.
Okay, so I counted like 22, but I could be wrong.
23 was on the list that I just gave you.
That's a lot of Halls of Fame.
Elvis?
And see, I'm glad that you mentioned all this, because those are the kinds of facts that would never occur to me to research. I'm just like, when was he born?
Yeah.
Where did he live? Here's some random anecdotes.
Well, I think it just goes to show that, like, there's a reason why, like, Elvis is a name that, I don't know. I don't know where the age cutoff is. Like, how young do you have to be to hear the name Elvis or see a picture of Elvis and have no idea? Like, have no idea.
I don't know. Like, I wasn't into Elvis, but I definitely knew who Elvis was. So younger than 23.
Like, is there another pop culture icon that's true of? Like, maybe you could say, like, Superman or Batman or Spider-Man or something,
probably,
but like a real life figure.
A real life figure.
Like, is that even true of the Beatles? Like, you probably have heard the term the Beatles, but like, if somebody saw a picture of Paul McCartney, would they be like Paul McCartney at any age? You know what I mean? I don't know.
I don't know. We'll have to do some field research.
I think
just walk around the library showing Elvis's picture to like 2-year-olds and see what happens.
Yeah. Do you know who this is? Have a picture of Elvis and a picture of George Harrison and be like, can you tell me? I think that at some point Elvis just sort of like ceased being an individual and just became like
a
product, like a cultural touchstone, like something that people are just like aware of, I don't really know when exactly that happened. I mean, it seemed like some of that was even during his lifetime, but Elvis Presley, is making more money now than he did when he was alive.
That's insane.
It's just like there seems to be no end. I feel like new people are discovering the music all the time. So tell me a little bit about what's the first thing you did?
So I'm trying to remember the order things happened in. Okay. I think the first thing I did was listen to one.
Okay.
And I definitely recognized more of the songs than I thought I did.
Yeah.
Like, not necessarily more than I anticipated, because I expected to recognize more than I kind of knew.
Yeah.
And I did enjoy that. Overall, I was like, yeah, like, this is the style of music.
Knowing your taste in music, I don't know that I would not have expected you to be like, and now I'm going to add it to my Spotify, like, listen, like, I wasn't expecting that, but like, you still kind of appreciated it, I guess?
And I feel like it's the kind of thing that it's like, maybe not my like main wheelhouse of music listening, but is like tangential. It's like pretty close to some of the stuff that I listen to. So I was like, all right, this is a pretty good time.
All right. So one was all right for you. Okay.
And then I watched Change of Habit.
That's an interesting one to start with. It's his final like real acting role. The ones after that were more like concert films, and it's very different from every other Elvis movie. What did you think?
I enjoyed it.
Okay.
Although, as I was watching it, I was like, I started to have this feeling. I was like, I don't know how much of me liking this is about it being Elvis and how much is just like the concept of nuns going undercover.
I know. Yeah, you perked right up at that.
Fantastic.
Yeah, you did. What about that part where he hugged autism out of a kid?
That was kind of weird. I was watching that and I was like, oh man.
That doesn't seem like it's going to work.
This is not how we think about this anymore.
Yeah. I mean, the basic plot of Change of Habit is I love the pun also of Change of Habit.
I know. That is pretty great.
Elvis is a doctor in a bad neighborhood, and Mary Tyler Moore and 2 other nuns go undercover to try to reach people in the neighborhood, and it sort of works. And then sparks fly, and it's spoiler alert, I guess, mild spoilers for Change of Habit, has a bit of a cliffhanger of an ending, sort of a what's going to happen kind of ending.
I felt like for a what's going to happen kind of ending, it was also very clear what was happening kind of ending.
Maybe.
But maybe that's my personal read. It was a lot less definitive than I expected, though. Like, it ended and I was like, wow, that's so much more ambiguous than I had anticipated.
And I feel like, too, like a lot of the... It's sort of like saying Bond girls. I feel like the female characters in Elvis movies, it's kind of like the same thing. Like,
right.
Which girls are going to fawn over Elvis and which girls is Elvis going to end up with in these movies? Whereas I feel like Mary Tyler Moore's character had a lot more agency than I might have expected based on the other movies and based on the time. So
yeah, for sure. Well, and I also thought it was interesting that I feel like the movie, like watching it, it felt like you were seeing things through her and the other nuns' perspective. Yeah. Not through his perspective at all. Yeah. Which I really hadn't expected. And I do also think that was part of why I enjoyed it so much.
Yeah, you could argue really that it's like a Mary Tyler Moore movie. Like,
with Elvis in
Elvis,
it. That was kind of how it felt. And I was fine with it. It was a good time.
They also have great chemistry, I feel like, which I would not have expected.
You know? That's fair.
And I think his performance in that, like some of it is goofy, but I feel like he really does... Like, from an acting perspective, I feel like he has some really nice moments. Did you find that? Or?
I thought so, too. Yeah. There were several times, though, where he's just, like, walking down the street, and I'm like, what doctor wears this?
I know, yeah. I love he's got these sick, like, mutton chops and,
my goodness,
floppy hair, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, there was definitely some of that I thought was pretty funny. But overall, I was like, it felt more like a movie and not just like Elvis.
Yeah, and they sort of shoehorn in, like, there's one point when you first meet him where he sings Rubberneckin', which was later, there was a pretty popular remix of that, like, in the heels of A Little Less Conversation getting a remix. But it's not a musical, you know.
Right.
Like, he sings that song, but it's like in the movie, the guy has a guitar and is singing. Right. It's not, you know.
Yeah.
So, all right, so Change of Habit, you liked. All right. So what else? Where do we go?
So then I watched Viva Las Vegas.
Okay, Viva Las Vegas with Anne Margaret is kind of I feel like the quintessential Elvis movie. I think it's the most legit of the, the tropey Elvis movie kind of stuff. Like all the same stuff happens, you know, but I think Anne Margaret brings so much to it that it brings out a different side of it. I think it's got a great soundtrack. I mean, it's a corny plot. There's not a ton of plot really in it.
It definitely felt like a plot that was just there to be a plot, but like that was okay.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like it. I don't know. When the plot's not the point, it doesn't matter if the plot's not the point.
Yeah, I mean, you want to see Elvis and Anne Margaret interact. You want to, like, she sings half the songs, you know, like they've got some. I love that The Lady Loves Me duet they do. At
that
the
was
pool.
really fun. Yeah,
it's a great, like, their chemistry is really good. Yeah, and so as far as like this, we need to have words for them to say to showcase Elvis and Anne Margaret. I think it's better than it truly had to be. You know, when you look at some of the other ones. Did you enjoy it, or was it just like...
I enjoyed it, but not as much of Change of Habit. Yeah. It was like, there was definitely a lot more things that I was just like, what is even happening?
I know.
Like, this is just true of old movies in general, but some of the, like, relational dynamics and, like, anything having to do with women, I was like, okay.
For sure, yeah.
But
no doubt.
And it was one that Caleb didn't watch it with me, but he was like in the same room working on stuff. And he's like, every time I look over, it's like a different movie. Like,
yeah, that's true.
Like they're singing and dancing and like now it's, race cars. Yeah. And then, like, and I feel like that's kind of true that there's a lot of stuff in there.
Race car drivers in several. There's Spin Out,
that's really funny.
Speedway, and I think, like, if you were going to introduce someone to an Elvis movie, like, you kind of either go Viva Las Vegas or you go with something really early, like, King Creole was pretty good. That's, like, with mobsters and stuff. Jailhouse Rock, of course. Jailhouse Rock was put into, like, the film registry or whatever. I think from, like, a film criticism standpoint, probably you would say Jailhouse Rock is the one to watch. And it is pretty good, but like Viva Las Vegas, it's just sort of a showpiece for Elvisness.
Right.
But it's a little bit more stylish.
Okay.
Like Viva Las Vegas really has like that. It's 60s, but it has kind of a 70s glitz to it. Whereas
Jailhouse Rock.
Thank you. Has more of a, like, we're doing a cool thing here. It has a style to it. The famous print of Elvis that Andy Warhol did is from Flaming Star. Here are my favorite Elvis movies. Are you ready?
I am so ready.
Viva Las Vegas, Change of Habit, Easy Come, Easy Go. This is a fun one. Elvis is in the Navy, and it's like his second to last day before he gets out of the Navy, and he's diving, and he finds like buried treasure.
Oh.
And he's like, well, if I report it, I have to give it to the Navy. But if I come back tomorrow and get it,
right,
then it's mine. And so that's pretty much the plot.
And shenanigans ensue?
Shenanigans ensue. You know they do.
I can see how this would go.
Follow That Dream is also kind of a cool movie. Elvis and his family they don't have a place to live, and they build a new section of highway. And when they make a new section of highway, it makes this new land, like, because they had to fill in a bit of a river. And so there's a piece of land. And it's all about, like, nobody owns that land, so they kind of, like, take it over and, like, claim it. And so there's a whole fight between, like, Elvis and the government. And he's like, this is our land. It's a weird.
That is really funny.
But it's a fun one. And then for, like, the cheesiest of cheese kind of Elvis movies, I'm going to give it to Girl Happy, where Elvis and his band go on spring break in Fort Lauderdale.
Oh, my gosh.
And, I'm sure it's cringy from a sexism standpoint. I didn't rewatch it, but I just remember, like, having a good time with that one.
There's definitely some of those that it's like, I know I liked this, but if I watched it now, I might not, so we're just gonna not.
Yep. I think some of the other things, before we started this, I was listening to the 68 Comeback Special, which is really like a high watermark in Elvis's career. Like, both the video and just the soundtrack to that is really good, because that was sort of like, he'd been in the Army, he'd been doing these stupid movies, and he was just kind of like tired of it. And the 68 Comeback Special is a much more like grounded, cool, like the Elvis that I think of is 68 Comeback Special.
Gotcha.
Because he's it seems like one of the few places where he's just like very secure in like what he is and what he's doing. And so it just sort of exudes cool. His musicianship is great. He's funny in it. It's a really good snapshot of like peak Elvis, I think. I love Elvis Christmas stuff. That's like a big part of like my
I forgot
Christmas
to
tradition.
listen to any Elvis Christmas stuff and see if I recognized it.
You will. I'm sure you will. Then there's another collection called Elvis Close Up, which is really fun because it's a lot of like outtakes and things. So you hear a lot of like personality and like
that's kind of fun.
Him talking about the music and stuff. And it went a long way to sort of be like, this is a person who had personality and thoughts and things. Right. It's a really neat collection to listen to.
Yeah, I feel like that could be cool because a lot of his like, and I think some of this is just because he's such like a big cultural like sensation.
Yeah.
Is that I'm like, I don't have a lot of concept of like what he's really like as a person because it's just so like produced and like, I don't know.
For sure, yeah.
And so I feel like something like that could be kind of cool.
I should have made you, in hindsight, watch the 68 Comeback Special, and that would really be my suggestion to listeners right now. Like, if you are interested in Elvis and want to know more, like, pull up the playlist for the 68 Comeback Special or watch some of the clips on YouTube or whatever. I think we have the DVD here in the collection, actually, but 68 Comeback Special, I think, will tell you pretty much all you need to know. The movie that just came out with Austin Butler was pretty cool. I liked that. I am
kind of curious about that.
It was nominated for all sorts of Academy Awards and Golden Globes and BAFTAs and all that stuff. So a lot of stuff in there, but pretty lauded movie. And Austin Butler's performance as Elvis is really great. Like, the voice, the movements, the looks. Like, I don't know how he did it. I was very impressed with the way he was able to like really embody that, because it's difficult.
Right.
Like, Elvis is
so distinctive.
Exactly. Like, the way he walks, the way he talks, the way he looks, responds, things like all of it is like, if it's wrong, it's obvious,
Right, yeah.
I think he did it to like an eerie level of some of the pronunciation. I was just like, wow, how is this not just Elvis like recordings that I'm listening to? It's really impressive. So that was cool. There was also a movie with Kurt Russell as Elvis that came out, which was pretty well received. And then Jonathan Rhys-Meyers did a miniseries years back, and he looks so much like Elvis that was pretty good too. I don't know if you saw anything about Agent Elvis, which is coming out on Netflix on March 17.
I don't think so.
2023. It is Elvis becomes like a spy for the government. It's an animated series. Matthew McConaughey is voicing Elvis. Priscilla Presley is voicing herself in it, and it looks hilarious.
That does sound kind of fun.
They're using the music. It looks great. I can't wait to watch it. So, like, that's high on my list. Forever ago, I read this series of mystery books called, I don't even remember if they have a series title, but it's Elvis is like a PI, like sort of a reluctant PI.
Okay.
And so they're called, one is called Such Vicious Minds. One is called Viva Las Vengeance. They just, like, they all have these really stupid Elvis pun names, and they crack me up. And it was just Elvis solving crimes. That's Kill Me Tender, Blue Suede Clues, Viva Las Vengeance, and Such Vicious Minds. They're by Daniel Klein, and they're a good time. They're a good time for
like fun.
Elvis extras. It's hard to choose favorite Elvis songs because I like different genres of Elvis music for different things, but Suspicious Minds, I think, is one that always kind of comes up into my head. Some of the more serious ones, like In the Ghetto, I tend to like, but I also like the 50s, early 60s, Wear My Ring Around Your Neck, teddy bear kind of stuff as well. Like, it really just depends, but I don't think I've ever been disappointed when an Elvis song comes on the radio or wherever.
That's good, and I feel like that's high praise.
Yeah. So, I mean, what's your takeaway? How has your perception changed? How do you think it's going to influence you going forward?
Overall, I feel like I enjoyed the experience pretty well, and I feel like it's a lot more likely that I might be like, we'll throw an Elvis song on a playlist here or there.
Okay. All right. I can't ask for anything more than that.
That's fair. I don't know that I would watch any more Elvis movies.
I think you're fine.
But I might rewatch Change of Habit because that was a great time.
Change of Habit. I mean, Love Me Tender is very good, and
I could see potentially watching
movie.
that one. I am intrigued by the concept of him not being the main character.
Yeah, and he's truly good in it. Like, it's a good performance. I wish we could have seen like where that career went.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because I think he had it in him, like I said. So, all right. So you could see throwing it on the list. You're not going to skip if it pops up on Spotify or something like
Probably
that.
not.
Okay. Is that what you expected?
I feel like my perception is more positive than it was.
Okay.
I feel like I was expecting to be like pretty okay with Elvis music, etc. But I feel like before, again, definitely colored by the fact that when I was a kid, I for some reason had bad vibes about Elvis.
Yeah.
So I feel like that definitely has improved my perspective of Elvis.
All right.
Less bad vibes.
Good enough for me. All right. Well, we have a lot of Elvis stuff in the collection, and not just because I ordered the books, but because we already had a lot of Elvis stuff in the collection. So movies, music, books, lots of stuff. And we have a special But Have You Tried display. So if you're local and want to pop into the library, you can look at some of the things in LA. You should look at some of the things we've been talking about here and check out the special But Have You Tried display. I wonder what's going to be on that display next.
Oh, wow. We should find out.
That's right. We should.
I have to ask Nick. I know, like, I'm wondering if you're going to like what I'm about to suggest as much as you like Elvis.
Okay.
It seems pretty unlikely.
I don't think so. No, it would be weird.
But there's a chance. So Elvis was great, but have you tried miso soup?
I don't think so. What is it?
So miso soup, it's a traditional, like, Japanese cuisine. And what it is it's a paste made out of, like, fermented beans, I believe.
Okay.
And that kind of makes the base for the broth. So you mix it into hot water and you put in tofu, usually some kind of seaweed, and sometimes carrots or some other vegetables.
So I said you had to listen to the King of Rock and Roll, and you're saying I have to eat watered down bean paste.
It's not watered down bean
correct?
paste.
You said you put bean paste in water, so I think by definition it is.
Yeah.
Okay. Look, I'm here for it. I'm this social experiment that we're embarking on together. I'll do it. Are you gonna like provide the miso soup, or do I have to go and find it in my world? I'm good either way.
That's fair.
I just need to know.
I feel like I could provide the miso soup. Do we want to like have you try it and record next time we're recording?
Okay.
I could bring miso soup here.
Okay.
What do we think?
Sure. Yeah, people would love to listen to me slurp soup. That'd be great.
Or I mean, you can try it and then immediately record your initial impression. I don't know.
We'll see.
But I have a bunch of miso paste, so I feel like
let the good times roll. All right, how can the good people listening follow along with us in this journey?
So I will post a recipe on our socials for how to make miso soup. Okay. And I don't know if there's like a good place around here to get it.
Yeah, probably not.
Probably not.
I would guess no.
But I will post a recipe on our socials. And a great place to get miso paste if you are saying to yourself, that's not something I have on hand. Wegmans.
Okay. This is a wild pivot from Elvis to miso soup, but I'm ready.
Alrighty.
Okay. All right. So in 1 month, we're going to get back here. I'm going to try miso soup. We're going to see if it's as life-changing for me as Elvis has been for you. In the middle, we're going to reconvene and just talk about like what we've been reading, what we've been doing, a little what we've been catching up on in the world of pop culture and popular things here at the library. And then we'll come back and we'll talk miso soup.
It'll be great.
Okay.
I'm so excited.
Remember, you can follow us on Facebook or Twitter. And so if you can take a minute to rate the podcast wherever you can do that, subscribe to the show, share it with your friends, tell everybody about it. Allie, they can follow us on Tumblr as well, right?
Yes, Tumblr, But Have You Tried?
So go track that down. Okay. Well, Allie, I'll see you in a couple of weeks then.
Looking forward to it.
All right.